Hello, welcome to another episode of Get Your Fill, Financial Independence and Long Life, where while we are exploring ways to achieve those two goals, people come on like out of the blue. So last week, if you were listening in on the episode with Curtis May, one of the very first things he mentioned was the book Profit First. And then here along comes Rocky Lalvani, who unbelievably is exactly going to talk to us about go even deeper into that idea that as a business owner, you should pay yourself first. Rocky is the millionaire next door. He's just, you might think he's a regular guy, but he's the millionaire next door. He helps business owners and other people like non-business owners, like what we might call normal people, to achieve their financial goals as a profit first professional. So Rocky, thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for having me on, Christine. Excited to be with you today.
So as a business owner, especially right now where I'm starting, I guess I could say another new business, it's this idea of like taking money out of a pocket that's already pretty empty and putting some of it into my own personal account it's a little scary. It's a little petrifying.
I think this is where a lot of people misunderstand profit first. Just because you allocate money to profit doesn't mean you need to distribute profit. As a matter of fact, in the early stages of the business, a lot of times we'll just let it build up so that you build up your war chest and your cash buffer so that should you hit a bump, which surprisingly will happen, you can handle it. It'll be annoying and frustrating, but you'd be like, I have to write a check. I'll write a check. I have cash. And that's really what it's about. It's about appropriately using your cash, putting some constraints around it. It's actually built on the principles of pay yourself first, right? In the personal finance realm, a lot of people talk about envelope banking. Are you familiar with that?
Yeah.
So basically, all you're doing is you're giving each dollar a job and you're sending it to do the job. That's essentially what Profit First does. It says, okay, we have a business. We're supposed to be profitable. How about we actually put some money in the profit account? How about we put some money in the pay me account because I deserve to get paid? How about we save for taxes? Because for a new business owner, the first time they are profitable and they see their CPA and they do their taxes, they freak out over how much they owe in taxes, which creates a whole nother issue. But if you put money aside for taxes, then you stroke a check. Annoying, yes, but doable. And then we constrain what we spend in the business. There's something known as Parkinson's Law. Parkinson's Law says we will use up all the time and money allocated. So whatever you allocate, it's gone. You're going to do a project. They're going to say, what's your timeline? What's your budget? Nobody's going to come in and say, oh, we can do it for half that in half the time. Doesn't happen. They will spend it all, right?
Oh, yeah.
So by constraining everything, you just learn to be more resourceful. You figure out how to get it done faster, quicker, and easier. And that's literally what the principles behind Profit First are. Creating a systematic approach to handling your money and managing your cash flow, which most business owners struggle with. And here's the dirty secret. I don't know how many of you own 7 and 8 figure businesses, but I will tell you that while the top line is wonderful and you're all like, wow, for many of these business owners, the bottom line is like, ew, you're not even getting paid that much. All that time, all that stress, and all that effort, and they don't have the money to show for it. And many times they don't have the cash flow. So by doing this in the appropriate way, you actually can skip all of that.
But Rocky, are you sort of talking about, because like right now, my business hasn't even officially opened yet. So we're talking about not just like taking money out of the budget to do like renovations. We're talking about once money starts coming in, that we give it its own bucket.
Correct. So you're starting your business with some seed capital, I'm assuming, correct? What we like to do with seed capital is put it in a separate bank account because I want you to feel your seed capital disappearing, right? I want you
But
to
that doesn't feel
actually
good, Rocky.
no, and that's when then what does that do automatically? Do I really need to spend this? Is this the best way to spend it? So what we're doing is we're tying to your emotions of that. If you put your seed capital and you mix it in with everything else, you can't tell what's what. And then you don't make the wisest decisions. Now, every time a brand new dollar comes into your business, we allocate it according to the profit first system. So you are profitable dollar one.
Okay.
You don't sound like you believe.
Well, I actually have just done my forecast, and it's like the end of the year before I have any what you would even call, well, that's like a break even point. But that's also gets into all kinds of wiggly numbers, like how fast sales are going to grow and things like that.
So let me ask you a question. What's causing your overhead to be so high that it's going to take you that long to hit a profitable space?
Well, it's a physical space. So this is the first time I've done anything like this. It's a co-working space. So it's a physical building, which has rent, and it has uh, rentals like copy machines and coffee
Mhm.
machines and Wi-Fi bills and like a lot of monthly expenses that are just going to be that are just kind of necessities. People aren't going to come to work here if they don't have fast Wi-Fi, things like that. Things that I think are important to the business. But yeah, it just seems like a high overhead business.
Well, so let's just take, and we're not going to use real numbers. We're just going to
Yeah.
discuss in generalities today. But let's just say your overhead for this building is $10,000,
Okay.
right? Sir, I don't know if did you lease it or did you purchase it?
Well, so that's an interesting question because I own it, but in another entity.
Okay, so let's just assume in this case you lease the building
Yeah.
because the other entity should get market rate. So you're going to pay your other entity rent. So we've got our rent. You've got all those things that you talked about, high speed internet, all that stuff. You're going to come up with a number. Let's just keep it simple and say it's $10,000.
Yeah.
Okay, so every month $10,000 is going out.
Right.
You have X amount of offices in that space. Let's make it simple. Let's just say there's 40, right? So if there's 40 in the space, in order to break even with 40, you got to charge $250 a month. So if you leased every space out at $250 a month, you'd have 10 grand a month coming in and nothing to show for it.
Right.
Right. So that means we've got to clearly charge more than 250 a space. Let's just say it's 500 a space. Now we've got a 50%, I'll call it profit margin, because if you've covered all your overhead and everything, you should be able to take the other half home.
Right.
So that means that in order for this to work, we've got to get your first 20 spaces leased at $500. And so the question is, how quickly can we do that? What do we do so that before you even open, 10 of those are leased? And the first week, the other 10 are leased. And now we're at break even day 7.
Yeah.
But that's where profit first comes in. It goes, okay, this is what I need to do. And until I do this, I'm losing money. What do I have to do to make that happen?
Right.
And I think it's number one, having clarity. So not everyone has clarity on the numbers. Number 2, it's like, hey, wait a minute, we're not going to start hiring and spending and doing all of this until we can cover our first nut. Now, if you sit down and say to me, okay, first month, we're only going to get 15 or 10, well, then you can at least start projecting out for this. How long is it going to be till we get to 20?
Right.
And is that realistic? And then how long till we get to 30 and 40? I don't know what the co-working space market is like today. I know that prior to COVID, those places were filling up overnight. Like that, you could do it because there were a lot of solopreneurs that were looking for a place to go hang out, work, and have a little bit more of an office. And even in today, a lot of people can't work at home because they got screaming kids, screaming dog.
Right.
So if it works, then it works. But at least you know your numbers.
Yeah.
And we did that all on the back of a napkin. This is not calculus. We
Right.
don't do calculus. We do second grade math.
Thank goodness.
Thank goodness. Yeah. Good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Big grand opening this month. So, but now that, I don't know if you want to go down this road, but thinking about the idea of like marketing, making money, having to put out additional money in order to bring in some of that.
So here's my question. Do you have to spend money to market?
Well,
Maybe
that's
you
another,
do,
yeah,
and
that's a
maybe
good
you
question.
don't. So
Yep.
how many of your listeners are local to your show? Do you
Not that
know?
many, actually. Not that many.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do they know where you are? Are you okay sharing?
Sure. Yeah. The space is in Tingsboro, Mass, Bridgeview Circle in Tingsboro, Mass. But
Okay.
we actually have listeners in 50 countries and in 50 states, but not that many of them are actually in Massachusetts, surprisingly. So
But they all know somebody probably in
yes,
Massachusetts,
they
and
do.
maybe
Send
they
them
know.
over.
Send them. So let me ask you a question. If they sent somebody over and they signed up for a 6-month lease, would you be willing to send them $100?
Sure.
Okay. There's your offer, people. We just got you free marketing. Get out on social media, tell everyone there's a new place opening up. And if they sign up, you get $100. What could be easier?
What could
And
be
see,
easy? Exactly.
this is what resourceful means. Figure out, how can I get other people to help me out with marketing without me writing a check? And when you have constraints, you think out of the box.
Yeah. And you're right. It's very easy to fall into like a place where you feel like, well, it doesn't matter because everything is so expensive and I'm not going to have the money to do it anyway. So I might as well go deeply into debt and just keep spending money on everything.
No, let me ask you, are there any local coffee shops by you?
Yeah.
I would go to the coffee shop owner and go, hey, some of the people that sit here half the day, suck up your Wi-Fi and don't buy anything? Tell them they need a co-working space. Here's a flyer. I'll give you $100 for everyone you kick out of here.
That sounds good. Yeah.
You just have to be creative.
Yeah, exactly. Excellent. See, so you're not just a profit first guy, you're also like a marketing guru and
Well, how else are you going to be profitable? Like,
right.
when we look at profitability in a company, we only have a couple levers, right? One of them is appropriately increasing sales. Too often people will increase sales and they discount, and they don't realize that they gave away their profit margin. And now every time they sell something, they're losing money. They're dying, death
Yeah.
by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
So we look at that. And we also, because we look at all these companies, we see how they've spent on marketing in the past. We see what works, what doesn't. The truth is, most people waste 80 to 90% of their money on marketing. We just can't figure out which 20% works always.
Right.
That's the problem. But the better you get out, the more we do that. And then we look at cutting expenses or appropriately spending. And so it's just this is what we do all day. We help business owners to find the ideas, to think out of the box, to be able to do that. Because I think most people have diamonds in front of them. They just can't see them.
Yeah.
So our job is to help them see the diamonds in front of them. You just got 5 lead sources from 5 different coffee shops and you didn't spend a penny on marketing.
Yeah. Yeah. You're absolutely right. It's interesting. I was talking to an entrepreneur today and she said, well, I didn't do a website yet because I felt like, I just wanted to do social media. And we all thought, geez, if people don't know what you charge and they can't order, because she makes cakes, I said, people can't order online. They don't know what you charge. I think you're hurting your business by saving $20 a month on your website hosting. It's like, come on.
Well, and so a couple things to think of here. When you are on social media, you don't own the real estate.
Right.
Okay. Somebody else does. And a couple things to think of with that, just with social media, and people don't realize this. Let's say you're on Facebook. 1 out of 10 of your posts is shown to your followers. So people who've said, I want to watch the cake shop, 90% of them aren't seeing the cake shop. So now it's really hard to reach somebody. You go on some of these other platforms, there's this big retailer that dominated the world that starts with an A. I will tell you that there is a reason that they have a ton of money, because every time you sell something on there, they literally take a third of it.
Yeah.
It is very hard to do business on that platform because most people can't create the margins in a highly competitive space to be able to do that.
Right.
So again, you're on somebody else's real estate, right? You're not on your own. Like you said, building a website is pretty easy these days. $20. It doesn't even, I guess $20 a month
To host it, I think.
to host it. Yeah, you can find, actually, you can get on HostGator, I think, for $160 for 3 years or something, or
Wow.
I don't know what the current plan is. They do it as a giveaway for signing up in the beginning. The point is, even at $20 a month, get yourself up, get the basics up, get an email. But and that's the other thing. In the beginning, it's literally knocking on doors, calling people up, which people don't like to do.
Yeah.
You've got to get people to come to your website.
Yeah.
And that's not easy. People think I throw up a website and the traffic's going to flow. It doesn't.
Yeah. Yeah.
The other thing they worry about is getting a business card. I need a business card. No, you don't need a business card. The young people don't even know what business cards are.
Right. Exactly. A virtual business card.
Virtual business cards.
Yeah. So Rocky, how does it work when someone first of all, how do people normally find you? What's your?
So couple things that we do. Number one, our main outreach is my podcast where I teach everything that we do. So that's Profit Answer Man. People will listen to here today, maybe. And if they're a business owner, they want to learn more, they come listen to the podcast. And honestly, they probably hang out there for 3 to 6 months. And then they show up on my calendar and say, let's chat.
Yeah.
Some people do it sooner. Some people take longer. The other is, one-to-one networking, going to conferences, going out and meeting people. And then there's referrals. So, they all kind of go like this, up and down.
Yeah.
And it just varies how that looks. And then if sales aren't where I want them to be, I pick up the phone and I start calling people.
Yeah.
Amazing what happens when you do that.
I know, exactly. That's what they say. The harder I work, the luckier I get.
Yeah. The harder you work, the luckier you get. So true.
Yeah. And do you normally at what stage of the business do you normally start working with people?
So for one-on-one coaching, usually we're at $500,000 up into 7 and 8 figures.
Mm-hmm.
However, what we found is we were getting a lot of people coming to us who were not at that stage, but who desperately needed help. So we've actually just created a new program that regardless of where you are revenue-wise, whether you're just starting your business, we've created a program that is perfect for you. It's called the Profit Blueprint. And it comes with different levels of support. So every level is supported. It's just, it includes one-on-one time with us. Mm-hmm. So the higher tiers have more one-on-one time. And, if you're a relatively small business, you're just getting started, like, the example we went over today. I mean, the mid-tier package, we would get you started, talk about what we just talked about in a little bit more detail, pencil it out, help you figure out and put that to paper so you have numbers to measure against. And then we follow up in a couple of months to see how it's going, make some changes and help you succeed. So again, we now have help at every single level because we realize that for most small business owners, there's too much hype out there and there's not enough reality. And our goal is to help you have a growing and more profitable business. And if we can't help you, we'll be the first to tell you that we're a waste of money.
Yeah. Rocky, how'd you get started in this?
So this goes back to your story, kind of, right? I started out when I was young being very entrepreneurial, and then I did what I was supposed to, which was go to college. And then I got sucked into this track of a good job. I've always said good is the enemy of great,
Yes.
right? Because you get complacent.
Yeah.
And during that whole time, I was always the finance guy. So I'd always read the Wall Street Journal. We're supposedly one of these days we're going to have a recession. I don't know when it is, but every time we used to have one, there would invariably be stories in the New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, which I'd read, and they'd be like, this guy was super successful, and at 53, the recession hit. He lost his house, he couldn't find a new job, and he went broke. And I was like, I never want to be that guy.
Yeah.
So how do I prevent it so that when I'm 50 something and I get screwed over, that I have an exit plan, right?
Yeah.
So I just started building wealth the old fashioned way with things that we talked about, paying myself first, setting money aside, letting it compound. Well, so at some point, I had enough money that I thought I was going to be happy, but that didn't happen. So you start to question, like, what's really going to make me happy? What would I enjoy doing? What does life, I'm going to call it retirement.
Yep.
So my views on retirement have dramatically shifted. And that started me on a journey to explore, what do I really want to do? What do I really have fun with?
Yeah.
And what will the market pay for? So this is where I think people get confused. You have to have something that you love doing. You have to be good at it, right?
Yeah.
The world has to want it, and they have to be willing to pay for it.
Yeah.
When you can find that intersection, that's where life comes together. It probably took me maybe 8 years, 9 years to figure that out for me. So it was a slow process, testing different things, having money losing businesses, right? You try stuff, you see if it works or if it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then eventually it all came together when I partnered with Profit First, because they took over parts of the things that I didn't enjoy doing. They're the kind of the visionaries of the business. I'm the on the ground operator doing the work.
Yeah.
For me to get on all those stages and run all over the country and make this whole system popular, that's difficult. This conversation wouldn't have happened today the way it did if someone last week didn't know about Profit First and introduce it to you, which then otherwise you'd be like, who is this guy? What's this? Another system? I don't really care, right? But Mike has done that job for me,
Right.
and it's not the part of the job that I would have enjoyed doing. So it was a perfect marriage for us. But it took years to do that. And even once I started, it took me a while to build a business. And I've been told, if you're going to start a business, expect 3 years. The first year, you're not going to make money, and you got to figure out how to pay for your cost of living, because you got to run your life without your business giving you anything. Second year, business starts to take hold, break even, make a little bit of profits, things start to flow.
Mm.
And then usually your third year is really where you hit the ground running, and you start to have a good and successful business.
Yeah. Yeah, it definitely is. And you probably didn't realize it at the time, but all those, what you might think of as failed attempts, right? They just gave you data that you needed to make the right decision and recognize the right decision when it came along, right?
It did, and it gave me experience.
Right.
It taught me how to refine myself. Like, all of those things were very good learning experiences that allowed me to get to where I was. Because part of that whole process was starting my other podcast.
Yeah.
And so when it came time to start this podcast, it wasn't like, how do I do this? Da, 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 da. It's like, I've got the formula down. I know how to launch. I know what to do. I know all the mistakes I made with this podcast.
Yeah.
We can go at 100 miles an hour. And
Yeah.
literally we did.
Yeah, that's key. Like you say, you're just paving the groundwork. You don't know it at the time. It feels like failure, but later on you're like, oh, phew, thank goodness I got that over with early.
It is, and that's what it comes down to. You have to I think the biggest thing I learned in this whole process is that most people don't take action, and until you take action, you don't learn anything. What I tell people is if you're gonna take action, don't take big, hairy, crazy action. Like, don't take action that's going to cause you to blow up, right? I know everyone says, "Oh, I built this business by jumping off a cliff and figured I'd build it on the way down." No, right? Start on the ground and learn to climb and do it with safety. Don't make reckless decisions. That's all.
Yeah.
And you keep going from there.
Yeah. What's the biggest mistake that you see over and over again, people making?
So I think that comes into two things. For people who haven't started, it's not starting.
Yeah.
It's
That's so
taking
true.
the first. It is so much harder to go from 0 to 1 than it is to go from 1 to 100.
Yeah.
And so I think if you haven't taken action, it's that first action step. Because I come at it from a finance side, I think most people don't do the back of the napkin math. They
Mhm.
don't sit down and understand what's going on in their business, and they don't pay attention to their fuel gauge. Now, in a business, there's a ton of gauges. Today, we're only literally talking about one, which is the fuel gauge. We've talked about marketing. That's another gauge. There's multiple gauges in a business. And I think for most business owners, they never build a dashboard. They never build a scoreboard. And so they have no idea what's going on. They're flying blind. And I think once you start to put all those pieces in place, then you get to make wiser business decisions and you can play with the levers to see what happens. And there's plenty of books out there on how to run a successful business. Go read a few and learn from other people's mistakes.
Right. It's so true. And that's anything you want to do has been done already. And that person probably
Mhm,
wrote a book about
mhm.
it.
They did.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. So, Rocky, we talked a little bit before we started about, people's why, like identifying your why. Can you just talk about that a little bit? How you help people do that and why it's so important?
And so, well, let's go back to the airplane kind of analogies, right? If I'm going to take off from LA and I know that I'm going to JFK in New York, that plane is going to, number one, make sure there's enough gas in it, right? They got to make sure you have the fuel. You've got a flight plan. You know where you're going. 99% of the time, you're off course. You might run into a storm. And somehow, this pilot, I don't know how, he finds his little teeny airstrip, although JFK is big, and he lands the plane there. But what happens if you get in the plane and the pilot says, "Hey, we're going for a joyride. Not sure if there's any gas in this beast, but let's roll." Like, where do you do? Are you staying on that? Or are you getting off? Most people don't know where they're going. If you don't have a target, how are you going to hit it?
Right.
And and more often than not, most entrepreneurs have ADD. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that. Oh, look at that.
Yeah.
If you don't have clarity on what you want and where you're going, it is so easy to get sidetracked into other types of things. And so we ask people a very simple question: what do you want? And most people can't answer that.
Yeah.
Purpose is number one. If you don't know what is that quote? The best day in the life is when you figure out what your purpose is. It's something like that.
Oh, I don't know that one.
I'll have to look it up. I could probably find it in a minute. Um,
I know if you don't know where you're going, any road will take you there.
yes, if you don't know, yeah, I mean, and that is so true, right? If you don't know
Yeah.
where you're going, any road will take you there. Yeah, I think that's the thing. And we talk about this. There are a lot of things that school does not teach you. They don't
Right.
teach you money. They don't teach you how to build relationships. They don't teach you how to figure out your purpose. They don't teach you to work on your strengths. They don't even let you know what your strengths are.
It's true.
So the quote is from Mark Twain. The two most important days in life are the day you're born and the day you figure out why.
Oh, that's great. I like that.
So, I think for people who can fix, some people know their why as little kids, right?
Yeah.
Most of us don't. And
Yeah.
I think for most people, if you look at the reasons people died with regrets, it's because they didn't figure out their why. They
Yeah.
didn't live their life in alignment with what they wanted. They did what everybody else told them to do, and they're just unhappy and miserable.
Yeah. Yeah. That's so true. It's very easy to just take that road that everybody else is telling you, oh, do this, right? But why that, but those are the 90, whatever, 99% of people who are not particularly successful that are giving you that advice.
And it's not even that they're successful or not successful. It's that it was their purpose or
Yeah.
their dream or their desire. And I think that's where people get it wrong. They try to follow somebody else's life, but they aren't willing to pay the price that person paid, or
Right.
they don't have the skills that that person has. Neither of us are going to make it into the NBA,
That's for sure.
right? That's for true, right? So let's be reasonable with that. If the guy in the NBA says you should be in the NBA, we're going to laugh at him because we know that's not possible.
Right.
But yet when someone tells us something that's possible, all of a sudden we go, "Oh, okay." And we don't
Yeah.
think it through.
Yeah. Yeah. I was just thinking about this is a little bit of a detour back to where we were, but in your plane example, the other thing that gives you is that everybody who's on the plane with you is there because they want to go where you're going.
Mhm.
You have that clarity of being able to lead the organization in a very effective way because everybody's on board there because they want what you're selling or
Now, if you're the leader of an organization and you haven't told everyone we're going to New York,
right.
you got a problem. Because I think in a lot of organizations, people are like, I don't know where this organization's going, but I'm here because of X.
Right.
And so
Exactly.
that's where you run into problems again. And we tell people, don't hire for skill, hire for cultural fit.
Yeah.
You can teach skills, you can learn skills. You can't change somebody's cultural fit.
Good advice. Excellent. So, Rocky, I mean, our time is flying by here. I can't believe it. We we talked about a lot of stuff that I wanted to talk about, but how about you? Is there anything that you wish I would have asked you? Is there something that's sort of burning up? Like, it's like, oh, when is she going to ask me about this thing?
No, I think we covered a lot of it. I mean, what I talk about usually is finance, which we talked about. We talked about getting clarity on what you want in life and knowing your purpose and taking action. I mean, those are the types of things that I talk about all the time.
Yeah.
And so I think we covered the majority of it. But can I ask your listeners to do me a favor?
Yes.
Okay. If you've enjoyed Christine's show and you like it, would you do her a favor and hit the like button on whatever app you're listening on? If you've got a friend who you're like, oh my God, they should listen to this, would you share it with them? Give her a little love. I'm sure she'll be happy for that.
Oh, thanks, Rocky. I was going to tell people the same thing about you. If you like what Rocky shared, which I know, how could you not? Then share it with a friend, right? Be generous. Pay it forward.
Very
So tell
much
people
so.
what's the best way for them to reach you. Oh, sorry. What'd you say?
No, I said that's very true. Yeah, if people want to find, if you're a business owner and you want to understand finances, the podcast is Profit Answer Man. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you'll find that. If you're like, wait a minute, how do I figure out my purpose? How do I build a life of harmony? I want to learn that side of it. Come check out Richer Soul. We talk about that all the time. We've got people who have done it. We show people who can help you get there. And either one, depending on what you need and what you want. First, you got to decide.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Rocky. It's been a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me today.
And thank you, listener, for tuning in and take Rocky's advice and share this with a friend. Tune in next week. Take care.